All right, let's kick it off. Again, welcome. Thanks for joining a live demo of Promethium today. My name is Toby Beck. I'm our Director of Product Marketing and Growth, and I'm joined by Michael Peresu today, who's one of our engineers, who's going to take you through the actual demo. A couple of housekeeping items I want to quickly address before. If you have any questions, feel free to chat them in at any time using the Q&A function here in the Zoom webinar, and we'll get to questions after we're done with the demo part itself. Um, and I will give a quick kind of 5-minute intro about, what it is we do here at Promethium, and how this is relevant to you. And then I'm gonna hand it over to Michael, who's gonna take you through the product itself. And if you have to leave at any time, we're obviously recording this, so you can see the recording after, and we'll publish it on our website. Um, Look, a couple things just to set the scene. Obviously, there's a whole promise of AI that you can now get any insights at the touch of your fingertips, like with ChatGPT or Claude. You can just ask a question and get any answer from using public information. Um, across the web. And as a result, also in kind of the data space, there's been this explosion of talk to your data agents that are supposed to connect you to your enterprise data. Um, across the landscape, pretty much everybody has added some level of assistant or AI copilot to their tools. I think according to like a McKinsey study, like 95% of all SaaS tools will have a conversational interface by now, basically. And so you have, your data platforms like Snowflakes and Databricks, adding Cortex and Genie that allows you to talk to your data, but also, across catalogs, BI tools, applications. There's various vendors. Everybody is investing into this. But the reality is that with most of these platform-specific agents, you only have access to a subset of data and a subset of the context. And so what ends up happening is that, answers using these agents fall way short of production expectations. There's a few benchmarks out there, but basically they all say the same thing. Um, Namely that only a fraction of answers against kind of open-ended questions like you would have them in the business against heterogeneous systems present or give you answers that are good for enough for decision making. And, the worst thing um, than a system not knowing what to do is a system giving you a wrong answer, right? Because if it confidently gives you a wrong answer, that means you might make decisions based off of wrong data. And if you kind of double click on why this kind of break happens, this what we call the great AI disconnect, it's basically three reasons. The first one is that data is distributed. It sits across various systems, and especially, kind of answering new questions that haven't been answered before and creating new valuable insights usually requires bringing data together across different platforms. The second piece, and that is one of the core pieces why AI breaks, is that context is similarly fragmented. Your technical metadata lives in your data sources, but there's a lot of business context or your semantic models that might live in data catalogs, BI tools, documents, or they might not even be codified and just be, living in your data analyst heads. And lastly, with this new expectation of self-service, traditional means and ways of doing this, mainly, kind of manually, with a lot of effort curating data, to get to a state where it then can be used, that's a process that isn't really scalable, in the age of AI. And so Promethium is kind of purpose built to address this problem. Our AI Insights Fabric basically connects all your data, brings in all your context, and then presents this data back to all different kind of users um, in kind of a single application. And you'll kind of see this throughout the demo, that we'll be able to bring in data from multiple sources at once, that there's different context sources we're using, and then that this data can be used in various places, like either through Mantra, our own kind of agentic interface, or Michael will show you in a second, for example, how we can also integrate with Claude, for example. So you can just ask questions against your data from kind of, the tools you're already working in. Um, so this is just to set the scene. I'm going to hand it over to Michael, and he's going to take you through Promethium and the actual product.
Thank you, Toby. Sorry, getting my screen share set up. Uh, Thank you all for joining today. As Toby said, I'm Michael Perzus. I'm an engineer working on Mantra, and I'm excited to show you a demo of what you can get done using Mantra. So for the sake of today's demo, we're going to step into the shoes of a data analyst at an insurance company. Say that I am in a part of the organization that has not touched a lot of financial data before, but I'm starting to receive questions from my team about how well our policies are doing in their monthly financials. That is some data that I'm not super familiar with. So we can start with a discovery process and see what's available and what types of questions can I ask. So I'm just going to say, what insurance data is available? And this is going to engage Mantra in one of its major workflows, which is data discovery. So it's going to go out and look for all the data that has been crawled in Promethium, and using these keywords. In this case, we're looking for insurance data specifically. We are going to surface the relevant data in the system and see what types of questions we can ask. One thing you'll notice is throughout all workflows here, there's always going to be a validating step at the end. This is just some extra validation that we layer on to limit or eliminate the possible hallucinations that can come from the underlying technology, the LLM. So you can see we get 15 different tables of insurance data that we can query, and it summarizes it for us. So all the essentials, claims, loss amounts, policies, etc. But my task was to come in and start to evaluate the financials of our policies. So I think a great starting point is, what are the most profitable policies? Now, we went through discovery by trying to find data that we could access to answer some questions. It said that we have access to policy data. So now it is going to build what we call a data answer to get answers from the data that we discovered in the first step. You can always see the different tools that it's using in order to do so. And then you can see in our output, we get a nice query and all of the reasoning as to why it built the query the way that it did. So first, let's go ahead and run this validate. So we're getting policy IDs and this metric called a combined ratio. If we take a look at what Mantra summarizes, we select with a combined ratio less than 1 because that is what defines profitability. I want a little bit more detail as to this metric because I've never seen it before. So can you explain business rules re profitability? It's always great to get this business context used section when you are building these data answers, but we can inspect even further what is the context that the system is using at any given point in time. So here we get the different formulas that are going into calculating combined ratio, the formulas underlying those metrics that are used to calculate it, and how we use those eventually to answer questions like what we did originally. So this is a great first step. We have the answer that we need, but it's not really in a consumable form. So what I'm going to ask is, can you include customer names in the query? Now we're iterating on that initial data answer that was built so that we can get something more than just an internal ID number for the policy and that combined ratio, and instead get identifiable customers that are paying for these policies that are deemed to be most profitable from this flow. Now you can see it's a little bit more complex. we are actually pulling from two different data sources in this case. Not that the user needs to know about that, but you can see INS SQL and SF INS. This is a SQL Server database, whereas this is Snowflake. So your user, your end user that is generating these data answers and looking at this output doesn't need to care about that. None of this data is being moved and we're querying across these different systems, but you do have that fabric layer that unifies the data access layer for you. Great. So lastly, we have this. We can go ahead and save my most profitable policies data answer so that other folks can start to consume this and we can iterate on it. Publish it as a consumable artifact outside via JDBC, ODBC, MCP, you name it, and start to even consume in external dashboards if you need to. Now, this is a great workflow to engage in when you want to build a data answer, something that can be consumed by one of your stakeholders, something that can be reused and reconsumed in the workflow that I'm about to show you that Toby hinted at in his intro. What happens if we want to just have an AI BI companion that can help us answer our questions where we're living today? That's a little bit different of a workflow, and I'm going to show you in Claude Code what I mean. So, or not Claude Code, sorry, Claude. Uh, so you can see here, I'm going to take the question that I'm going to ask, and we're going to ask Mantra to give me an average claim amount for different coverage types, and then to create a table and visualize it for us. You can see if folks have used MCP servers for Claude before.
Michael, I think we can see your Claude.
Oops, sorry. How about now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, awesome. So average claim amount for each coverage type. And then after we have that data answer, so the query that we produced in Mantra, we're going to visualize that and create a report on it. You can see here under connectors in Claude, we have Mantra as an MCP server. So by saying ask Mantra, Claude is aware. Let's go use that tool that the user is providing me and ask this question. Now, it takes a little bit to generate the plots, and it's coming from HTML at the end of the day here, but I'll talk you through the different steps. So you can see here in this collapsed form, we are using a tool called Ask Mantra, which is sending a question that Claude deems relevant to this flow to Mantra to generate some SQL, and then it has the ability to execute queries. Now, Claude gets the data back from that query that was generated and is now using it to generate this big chart that we're going to see on the right-hand side of the screen at any point here. And we can start to derive insights from what is returned from Mantra rather than just see the output data itself and have to interpret that. Now, once this renders, you can see we're getting both a summary table of coverage types and the average claim amounts for those coverage types, as well as not quite BI tool level chart, but a visualization to present to other folks and start to understand the answer to these questions in an ad hoc fashion without moving any of your data and just asking Mantra a natural language question. So what I showed today was two different interaction points with Mantra, one being our web application to start to build reusable data answers and data products, and then the other to be your AI BI analyst companion and be able to ask ad hoc questions from where you live today, whether that's Claude, ChatGPT, or any other MCP client compliant application. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, please leave them in the Q&A and Toby and I can tackle them together.
Yes, like Michael said, if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A tool. I do want to quickly make you guys aware of another upcoming webinar we're hosting together with our friends at Bark, more specifically Kevin Petrie, one of their lead analysts, together with our CEO, Brad Mogay. He'll kind of tackle the question, he'll dive a little bit deeper, I guess, on the conceptual pieces around some of these context and accuracy questions that we were talking about today. And so the session break the metadata bottleneck to drive agentic AI and contextual insights is all about kind of the architectural frameworks behind some of the stuff we have seen today. So if that is at all interesting to you, please feel free to register using the QR code, or you can obviously just go on our website, and there's also a link to register for this session. And then lastly, um, again, thanks to everybody for joining us. Um, if you want to learn more, and particularly about how this might work in your environment, feel free to reach out to either Michael or me, um, or you can just also scan again this QR code to schedule a dedicated time with one of us or one of our colleagues.